Hi, Miranda from Owl Ridge Homestead, Owl Ridge Fibers. Here I have my woolies. Come here. Come say hi. These are the beautiful Leicester Longwool sheep that we have on our farm that started it all. We've been working with fiber for a while before we got them for the farm, but it's been a game changer having, they're not all in here. Do you want some? Come on over here. This is Olive. So today I'm actually going to be processing their fleeces. They were sheared in the spring and it's time to process fleece. Where are you going? There they are. I'm going to go show you the entire process on how to process a wool fleece from start to finish. We're going to be washing, we're going to be rinsing, scouring, drying, picking, carding, and spinning. So stick around. I'm going to show you the whole process and come with me. Okay, I'm outside down at the house, and I have a bunch of fiber here. This is Lacey's white fiber, and I'm going to bend this down. I'll show you. Here we are. I'm going to tell you what I'm doing here in a minute, but I like to do this phase of the process outside because when you're washing out lanolin and dirt and poop and urine, you don't want to do that in your kitchen sink. You don't want to do that in your bathtub. Some people do. If you have a specific sink for farm stuff, yes, but then you also really need to think about the fact that you're washing down the drain lanolin. However, it does somewhat get denatured when it's when you use soap. So it breaks it apart. It's a degreaser. Any degreasers that you're using, the soap, the scour is a degreaser. And so there's a back and forth in the fiber community if you should be washing your fiber in your sinks or bathtub. We did have a hose going out from the kitchen out the window into a big stock tank that we have, where I filled that with hot water, but that was a lot of hot water. It drained our hot water tank in the house, and I was processing an entire fleece at one time. So lesson learned on that. I only do pieces at a time. So this is just a little bit of fiber that I'm doing at a time. And I do it that way. You'll get a lot of fiber just from a little, it may not look like a lot, but when you start teasing it and working with it, you can get quite a bit. And doing it in batches like this, pulling apart your fleece and doing it in sections, I find is much better. So right now what I'm doing, what I did before, and it's already been soaking, is I do a cold soak. So this is a cold soak, and this is cold water, and I do actually spray with the nozzle. I spray it a little bit to try to get out some of the vegetable matter as well, and just get that process going. You don't want to do too much. You don't want to agitate it too much, but especially if you have fine fibers. But I found that that works really well. So this has been sitting for about 15-20 minutes. That's all you want. It's an initial soak, and what this does is gets out the initial, look how dirty the water is already. I mean, this is, if you saw the fleece before, which I probably should have showed you, it's very dirty. And so this is getting out any initial dirt, poo, urine, but not lanolin. So the lanolin content is still here because it needs hot water. Lanolin, the melting point is water that's like a hot shower that you would take. Not boiling water. Do not use boiling water to wash your fleeces. It will felt them. It will felt the fibers. So it's hot, but you can still touch the water. It's not boiling and something you can't touch with your hand. So the hotter you can get it, the better, but not boiling. In order to get the lanolin out though, we're going to need to do a second wash. I don't want to wait too long because that's hot water over there. And the more it cools down, the worse it's going to be to get the lanolin out. My favorite that I found really does a great job getting the lanolin out, keeping the shine and integrity of the fiber is Unicorn Fiber Power Scour. Comes in scented, unscented, and all different types. So this is just Unicorn Power Scour. So you need your scour soap and hot water to get the lanolin out. Now, understand that too much agitation when you're washing, too hot of water will felt your fiber. So this is a very fine line here we're walking when we're washing fiber. So let's get to it. I'm going to show you the process a little bit here. I'm going to bend this down so you can see. And I'll talk you through it, but I'm going to show you. So what I'm going to do is, this is my hot water bucket. Okay, I'm going to position this a little bit better for you. Okay. So what I simply do is, after it's done in this phase, what you're going to do is squeeze it out. I got to put this in first. Hold on. So this is about 5 gallons. Mix that around. This is nice warm water. I put it real hot coming from the spigot because I knew I'd be talking for a little bit and not get it in here to scour, but I'm mixing it up and I'm just going to lift it from this, squeeze it out, get all that dirty water out. Here's a piece. Look, it's already looking really nice just from that. So, and you're just going to drop it in and sink it. Okay, squeeze, drop, sink, get it all in there. If I'm doing bigger batches, which I try not to do, I do have a netted bag, like a mesh net bag that I put the fiber in and then put it in the water. I did that when I did the stock tank, and it helps. It doesn't, there's no fiber missing from that. When you could just lift it out and squeeze the bag and put it in the next thing. But today I only have a small amount, so I'm not doing that. And what I'm going to do is just dump this. You can dump it in your garden, in your compost. This goes downhill to our perennials, so I'm fine with that. I think I have a hole in my glove because my hand is wet. What I'd like to do at this stage, so you can see it a little bit. What I like to do at this stage is, when it's in the scour, I don't agitate it at all. Get some of this stuff out. I don't agitate it at all. I just kind of squeeze so the water can penetrate a lock, because the locks are still intact, and we want that scour to penetrate the locks. So I just squeeze it and then let it sit. And the water looks great because I did that pre-soak. It doesn't look as bad as it could be. And Lacey keeps her fiber pretty. She stays clean. So I did that, and I'm going to let it I'm going to let it soak. Don't let it soak to the point where the water cools down. Because what's going to happen is the scour and the hot water are lifting the lanolin off the fiber. It takes the lanolin off of the fiber shaft and lifts it up and suspends it in the water. And it melts it. It's melting it and lifting it. And so what happens is, see, this is still steaming a little bit, so we know we're doing good. But if this cools down to the point where the lanolin can cool down, it will re-solidify in the water and then grab back onto the fiber. So what you get are these like little waxy lanolin balls that deposit back on the fiber if it's let to cool down. And you do not want that. That's going to be horrible. It almost looks like dandruff that's on the fibers when you're working with it afterwards. So like if you don't notice, you'll rinse it, you'll dry it and start working with it, and you're gonna be like, what are all those little tiny white particles in my fleece? And that's just redeposited lanolin. So you don't want that to happen. All right, so I'm gonna let this sit for a while and I'll show you what happens next. Okay, it's been about 45 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead. I should have my gloves on, but I forgot to put them on. So I'm going to squeeze this out as best I can and transfer it over back into the other bin that I did the cold soak in. I washed it out. I think I just have a little bit more in here. That's good. We're done. All right. I'm going to head back to the house. And I'll show you what I do next. I put the wool inside the tub. Now that the lanolin content is out of it and most of the manure and urine and everything like that are gone, squeezed out, now I can do a rinse in my tub or sink or whatever you want to use, because most of the stuff that you don't want in there is gone. And so what I'm going to do is, it's going to be warm water. I like to rinse the wool with warm water. I don't like to shock it from being in hot water and then rinse it in cold, because I don't want to felt it. So even that can shock the wool into felting, is the transition from really cold water to really hot water, or the transition from really hot water to really cold water. So you want to be mindful of that. I'm not going to do this too hot, just warm, and fill it up a bit and kind of just let it soak up and then rinse. I'm getting out some of there is some VM or vegetable matter in this fleece. So I'm getting out like the big pieces. Don't worry about the little stuff. That'll come out in the process. So the process of picking and carding and spinning, the rest of this VM will come out just fine. So I'm gonna just rinse this out, and you want to rinse it so you don't see any more suds coming out of it, and then rinse it really well. Okay, I rinsed and squeezed out the fiber in the tub, and I'm now going to kind of lay it on this towel, just an old, we call them barn towels around our house because they're not used for us. They're kind of used to do chores. So like a rag, but this is like just a dingy old towel. And I'm going to lay it out flat like that, and then roll. I just roll it up. I roll like that, and I press on it. And sometimes I'll step on it too, just to get all that water out of it. I do that. Sometimes this is enough, or I'll do it again. So I have another towel here, and I can do it a second time, and then I'll show you what we do from there. I brought down the wet wool. It's in this towel. And what we have here is just simply very simple. Our setup is rustic, nothing fancy at all. I don't have a fancy fiber processing room or warehouse or anything like that. This is all home processing. So I use sawhorses and a screened, well, this is chicken wire on a frame. And what this does is it creates the airflow to dry the wool. Normally, if it's a sunny day, I will be processing outside, or I would be drying everything outside in the sun. So that would be great. Today's a rainy day, So I'm going to I'll dry everything in the basement. I also have a fan that I can put on it to kind of hasten the process of it drying. But you want to make sure before you work with your wool that it's completely dry. So it's washed. I'm going to spread it out on here. This is also my skirting table. So I didn't show that process of skirting wool, but I should be doing a video on that. Actually, there is a YouTube video from years ago on our channel of me skirting wool and then sorting it for if I was going to bring it to a mill. And at this time too, I'm looking for any weird pieces that might just be way too filled with vegetable matter. I am slightly pulling it apart so it will dry. Don't do this part of pulling apart the locks if you're going to be working with the locks and not spinning it. I just do this initial part. I just kind of break apart the fiber so it dries quicker and easier, but it's looking great. You can see Leicester is so shiny and lustrous, and this washed out pretty well. There's some canary staining on it, but that's okay. I don't mind that. It's natural. If you get to this point and you're like, oh, I didn't clean it enough, it needs to be scoured again. Do that before you start drying it. And nothing has felted. This is another test. Nothing has felted here. So I'm just kind of pulling a little bit. You don't want to mess with it too much when it's wet. So I just gently pull some of the big clumps that are really big. I just pull apart slightly and spread it out. I don't want to do too much because that phase comes later, the picking. So I'm going to put this here and I'm going to set up the fan, and then I'll get to start showing you what we do with processing it from here once it's dry. That will be the fun part. All right, well, we've gotten to the point where we now have our dried fleece, and this is about 24 hours later, and this fleece is completely dry. This is what was drying down on the drying rack for about 24 hours. Sometimes some different fibers might take longer to dry, but this is nice and dry to work with now. I wanted to mention something here at this point in time in the process. Fiber artists can take any road they want from here. We're at a crossroads, and we can do so many different things once the wool is dry and we're ready to work with it. It doesn't necessarily mean that every fleece that we process is going to be spun into yarn. It might not have to be that way, and a lot of fiber artists don't spin yarn all the time or at all. So the way that I process this down on the drying rack, I did separate the locks to have it dry a little bit quicker. But if I were to be working with the locks to do some lock art or some art with the locks, I would be washing them a little bit differently and trying to keep the locks intact and not pulling them apart and losing their integrity. And washing them it would be a little bit more of a delicate process washing. That will probably be put in a mesh bag. And then when the locks are drying, they take a little bit longer because they're in their lock form and it's hard for the air to penetrate. So the locks maybe take a little bit longer to dry. But once done, anything goes. So these are intact locks, and I won't be pulling these apart. I'm going to be working with them. These are actually dyed. So that's another thing you can do. Once they're dry, then you can put them in the dye pot. So that's just an example. We also, here's another piece of lock art. but I made it into a neck piece. So this can go over a coat or a sweater. It's like a lock collar. So that's really fun to make. I have something else here. This is a lock stole. So it's a little bit longer, this beautiful wisteria colored locks. And that can go on and be worn as well. Almost looks like a boa. And that was a knitting project. So many things you can do. You can also lock spin. So we can get into spinning, but you can throw some locks in your spinning too that are intact that give it this texture. So there's several things. If I'm going to be spinning this, and not using it as with its locks, I'm going to be pulling the fiber apart. And the way I do that is several ways. I have a bunch of tools here. It's hard to get the camera and myself with everything, so I'm going to try my best. This is just a dog slicker, but it's a picker for me. Let me get something that hasn't been really pulled apart yet. So we'll take a lock, okay, and hold it at one end and flick it. It's like a flicker. And what I'm trying to do is, before I put it through a carder or a comb or a hand carders, whatever I'm going to be doing, I need to open up the locks and fluff it out. And not only does this help with the next process, it also gets any of that vegetable matter out, so it's completely gone. So here we are. I'm going to do a little bit of this for you. I'm going to switch this up. Okay, so flick, flick, flick. And then I'm just going to put it here on the stage of my drum carder. So combed top comes from combing. Roving comes from carding. And it makes a different yarn. So that roving is going to be making your woolen yarns. And your comb tops, all the fibers in comb top. And I don't have an example here. I should have had one. Combed top, all the fibers are going in the same direction once it's done being combed. It's all going in the same direction. And when you spin it, you're spinning it in a way that you're not letting any air get into the yarn itself. So it's a very smooth yarn, heavier yarn that's not full of air. And that's a worsted yarn. Not to be confused with worsted weight. So this is my drum carder. I'll show you a close-up of it, but it is really nice. You can get bigger ones, you can get smaller ones. They come in all sizes. There's all different manufacturers that make drum carders, but this is mine, and that's my dog who likes to be in the videos. It's the brother drum carder. So the brother, this company makes these drum carders. And it's just, this is the stage, this is the liquor in, and then this is the drum, the main drum. And I have a brush attached to it too. It helps just to smooth down the fibers onto the drum and really push it down onto the teeth. It's a little, I've used it in the last few days, so it still has fiber in it, but normally, I would clean it out after every use. The teeth are a little funky on this. I do need to put new cloth on it at some point. It's a little expensive. So you may not be able to see me, but I'm going to show you the process of what I do here. Oh, one thing to remember is it's got a hand crank here. Okay, so you're going to crank it this way. And you can get a drum carder that's electric that you don't have to crank with your hand. However, they're more expensive. So you're going to just see my torso, but I'm going to show you, I'm going to get some. So if you don't have a slicker and you want to pick your yarn, even if you don't have this, you can do it with your hands. I've done it with my hands and fingers so many times. And then I put it on the put it right onto the stage. And then from there, let me get around here. Oh, keep kicking these doors. Okay, and then from there, let me, should push this over a little bit for the crank so it doesn't get in the way of the table. I do use a clamp to clamp this onto the table because there's a lot of motion happening here, a lot, and it lifts up. So when I crank it like this, all this fiber is being pushed in by the liquor in. Okay. Now, I don't ever want to hold it back or pull back on the fiber. Let it be, or else it'll get stuck on the liquor in brush and will not evenly go onto the drum. All right, so there it is. It's on the drum now. And from here, what I do is I use another dog slicker and I sort of push it down even more. This does an okay job, but I like to do more. I like to push it down onto the drum a little bit more, okay? And then I keep going. So here's the fiber. Pick it. I'm going to do this in front of you. You're going to see there's a lot. Don't do this over, don't do picking over anything that's not covered with something to catch the debris, because this is going to catch a ton of debris when you're picking. And you'll see the drum carder underneath has vegetable matter and stuff that has fallen out of the fiber all underneath it. But this is what I said when I said, don't worry about a little bit of VM while you're washing, because this is, so I won't want to do this over my drum carder because it's going to get junk in the carder. If I do it over the floor, just know that you're probably going to be vacuuming. Or if you do it over your legs, you can get like an apron or something, because a lot of debris is going to fall. So this is the picking process. And again, I can use my slicker brush, but sometimes just to do a big amount, I'll use my hands still. Or just for demonstration, because I want to go a little quick. You can shake it, get anything big out of it. Don't pick it over your fiber or any fiber that's waiting to be picked, because you're just going to drop all of that stuff. So I'm making sure that any of the locks that are still together, I'm pulling apart. It needs to be, before you put it in your carder, it should be like a big fluffy cloud. So it should look, let me try to get it all so it's, oh, there's some stuff in that. All right, this is as good as I'm going to get it right now. A fluffy cloud. All right, again, I'm going to put it on here. I'm going to move you over to see. And crank. I'm seeing some debris in here. Kind of stacking it evenly on here will also help distribute it evenly onto the drum. So I'm going to continue that for quite some time. And I will come back and show you once the carder is full, what it looks like when it is full, and what to do after that. I'll be right back. Here I have filled the carder again, and I'm going to use my awl to remove the fiber from the drum carder as a bat. I'm going to lift up the brush so I can turn the drum easier. And then I'm going to find the metal strap again and take my awl. There's the metal strap, you got to look for that, and it will show you how thick your bat is as well, and that you have enough fiber on it. I'm going to take my awl and just start moving it down the metal strap and lifting the fiber up. Because this is such long wool, because Leicester long wool is such a long staple length, it is a little tough to get the fiber up and off of the carder, but it's not too bad. I'm showing you here what it looks like from the top view. And then you are going to be gathering the fiber with your hands as close to the drum as possible and pulling away and down, away and down. Some fiber might get stuck. You could just use your awl to unstick that and grab it and pull again, down and out. Some fiber may still stick to the drum, but that's okay. And then there's the finished bat. It is Leicester, so it's very shiny. You can see it is a woolen preparation. There's a little bit of vegetable matter I'm just taking out of that. And you can store this by folding it in certain ways. So here I'm going to show you how to fold it first, going the short way and rolling. You can roll it like such and store it that way, or you can fold it lengthwise and twist it in opposite directions on either side till it twists, kind of like you're twisting up a skein, and you kind of make a little bun, and you can store it that way. And that's the finished bat. And you can spin from that easily. So as I mentioned before, there's several ways to remove a bat or remove fiber from a drum carder. I showed you already how to just remove it as a full bat. And now I'm going to show you how to remove it by dizzing it off of the drum carder, the drum, using a diz. I showed you this tool. It has all different diz sizes. You can utilize that and some other cool things on it, but I just use a washer, a concave, convex, whatever. This is just a metal washer. Just make sure that the concave side is facing down. So I'm first going to pull my brush up so this is easier to maneuver. I'm going to find my metal strap, and I'm just going to remove with my awl, I'm going to remove just a little bit of fiber from the front part of it. And that's it, okay? And I'm going to be going this way. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to thread my diz, pull it through, and what you want to try to do is keep it as close to the drum as possible. So I'm going to start pulling it through here, keeping the diz as close to the drum carder as possible. We can see that. And just keep going down. If you notice it's getting thicker or thinner, move it closer to yourself. It might be grabbing too much fiber coming into the drum carder, but it goes pretty quickly. And so we're making roving right now. Just coming on. Now I'm coming to the metal strap again. So I'm going to start moving the carder this way, coming in, making sure I get fiber. It's getting a little thin. You want to try to make your roving as even as possible, obviously, for spinning purposes. It should be as easy as that. You can keep going. You can make it as thinner as you want. It just depends on your diz size. And kind of pulling it through. Just a fun way to make roving easy. Here I'm coming to the strap again, so I'm just going to move in, grab, and I put a lot of fiber on this time, filling it this time. Just want to move down. If you end up getting a big lump, it's okay. You can just kind of, when it comes out of the diz, just kind of pull it and it'll kind of work its way into the amount that you want. It's thinning out a little bit here. Sometimes that happens if the fiber didn't want to go onto the carder evenly, but it should be okay. Keep it going. Move it down. You're just shaping it. That's really what it is. When your fiber is done being carded, you're just putting it into different shapes. When I pull this off as just a bat, when I prepare the fiber to spin from bat form, I do tear it apart sometimes into strips. So it's almost like I just tear it apart and pre-draft it into roving anyway. So this is kind of this is especially for like sales. If someone wants roving it in roving form, I can at least do that for them. Now, getting to a point where it's starting to really thin out here, getting to the end, and I'm going to end it now before it gets too thin. And from here, it just looks like milled roving, really, carded and and put into roving. So from here, I'm just going to, there's some VM in it. I'll have to go through that later. But this is how you would receive your fiber if you ordered roving from a drone carder. Okay, we're at that point in time where if you were going to spin your fiber at this point, this is when you do it. I have the roving that I pulled off the carder. I gotta find the end of it, the correct end of it. Here it is. I have the roving that I pulled off the carder here. I can spin from the bat too. I spun from all different types of preparations. Sometimes I'll just spin from the fluff that I don't even card. Let me show you what we have left, because this is amazing. From all the wool that we processed, look at all this we have left, and we've already made 3 bats. So you can get a lot out of a little bit of fiber. And at this point, you know, I've spun wool enough that I can just separate these pieces and use the fluff and just spin that. People would rather spin from bats, or they would rather spin from roving, or they'd rather spin from combed top. It is what you like to do the best. And some people won't spin from any other preparation than combed top. Um, in my opinion, I feel like if you're going to be getting into spinning fiber, try everything. Try everything once, because you never know when you're going to be in a situation where you might need to spin from a completely different preparation, and it's good to have that experience. So don't close off certain preparations just because you have a comfort zone. So try to come out of your comfort zone a bit. I'm going to show you how I use my spinning wheel. I have it here. I'm going to point it down to that. I learned on a drop spindle, however. So if you're just starting out and you can't afford a spinning wheel, no problem. Drop spindles are like $2. And there are some you can make your own too. But I just got this cheap wood drop spindle. It's a top whirl. And years ago, I learned by spinning on a drop spindle. And I was very thankful that I did that because it made the transition to a wheel really smooth. With a drop spindle, you can do certain methods of spinning on a drop spindle that give you time to feel twist, to feel and the energy in the yarn, to learn how to draft. It will wait for you, especially the park and draft method. The fiber will wait for you to figure that out and then move forward. With a drop spindle, there's a little bit more control. With a spinning wheel, once you get going, you're going. And especially with beginners, it's hard for people to learn how to stop and start the wheel proficiently. And so using the drop spindle helps. It kind of slows it down so you can learn the basics and then move to the wheel. Not all the time. Some people start on a wheel and they're just fine with it, but I've learned, my experience was pretty nice learning from a drop spindle. And then I had this skill under my belt. So this is my Lendrum. I have a Lendrum spinning wheel. It's a Scotch tension spinning wheel. It's a double treadle spinning wheel. It has 2 treadles. I really like that. I started with my Ashford Traditional, which is over there, but I kept it because it has a lot of sentimental value to me. It was the first wheel I learned on, and Ashford is a great company. There's many different spinning wheel companies that you can look into. It took me several years to find a spinning wheel that fit my height, that fit my just all the little nuances about it that I like. There were several wheels that I tried that I just didn't like certain things about those wheels, and I couldn't get past it. So I finally landed on the Lendrum. I have some other wheels that I wanted to try. They're just very expensive. So getting your hands on wheels or being able to test out spinning wheels can be very difficult if you don't have like a warehouse around you or a place that sells spinning wheels, all different types and sizes. You can go down a rabbit hole, but I ended up going on Marketplace a lot and finding cheaper used spinning wheels and different types of spinning wheels, and different companies, different makes and models. So I landed on this and I really like it, and I don't want to change and do anything because it's a good height for me. I love the quality of the wood. There's no composite wood on it. I can't stand that. It's got dovetail joints on it. It's got a super easy way to take off the single head and put on the ply head. There's different heads that you can use for it. The tension of the drive band, I can easily fix that and do that. Everything just, I love how everything it works. To take the bobbin off, you just, that piece comes down. And so working with a lot of other types of wheels, this to me, I love the Lendrum. I'm going to show you just the basics on how I start a single, and then I'll stop the video and then put on my ply head and I'll show you plying. But very, very simple, and very 101. So this is for beginners to start out. My bobbin has a leader on it. That's the best thing to do. And to set up on the Lendrum is so easy. I just put it through this hook, and then the hook to pull the yarn through, or the leader through, is right here, so you don't lose it. And you can put it through, I'm going to put it through here first. Then I put it through this loop. I'm trying to look at the camera and what I'm doing. And then you can run it through and grab your leader and pull it through the orifice. I'm not going to go over parts of the wheel. That will just take a very long time. Learn the parts of a spinning wheel on your own. It's just looking at a diagram and understanding what the different parts do. I have a sliding part here that slides, so it puts the yarn on the bobbin nice and evenly. The Ashford has hooks. There's all different types. Okay, so I'm going to put my fiber here. I'm going to grab the end of it. And how I start singles, and some people will tie the fiber, but how I start it, first I'm going to just see if everything's set up. Yep, and there we go. First I'm just going to see if everything's set up correctly, because I did have to put the single head on it. My tension's good on that. I plied last on it, so I'm going to have to, okay, I don't mind that tension. A little less tension. So I'm going to pull out my leader. And so when you're spinning your singles, it's going to be Z in the Z, which is clockwise. And all I do is I touch the fiber onto the leader and it pulls it in. And then I can just start. Now, what I'm doing here may look like it's a simple thing to do, is drafting the fiber out and letting the orifice just pull it through and twist it. But this takes some time to learn how to draft. If you don't get it right away, please don't get disappointed about it or turn you off of spinning. It takes a long time to understand the feel of drafting fiber between your fingers, when to pinch, when to let go. So this roving is making a nice thin single for me, which is nice with very little effort. Very little effort in drafting. That's usually what roving or comb top does, especially if you break your comb top up. I'm going to push this all the way to the end. So this method I'm doing is the short forward method. Used a lot when you have shorter fibers to work with, the shorter staple length fibers. It works really well with that. However, I have Leicester long wool. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to pull this forward so you can actually see, is I do a long draw. So I'll pull it back and kind of, I'm going to put my fiber over here. Silly. And feed it in. Pull back, kind of let it get to the twist that I want, and then feed it onto the bobbin. And I can do this really nicely, especially with a woolen preparation, because the fibers kind of grab onto each other, and then they draft out from that main bundle that I'm holding, or the main fiber that I'm holding, really, really well. I spin it, and I check my tension, so there should be one pigtail there, so that's good. and feed it on. So you could do both. I like doing the long draw because it works so well with the long fibers and the long wool sheep that I have. But there's times I will do, you know, the short and forward. There's also the backwards pulling back method where you do this. It's sort of like long draw, but it's not as long, but you're pulling the fiber back and feeding it on instead of pushing forward. Hold on, I have a little bit of bobble here. And I have experience working with fiber that might not be carded perfectly because it is home processed. So I just joined back together there. So if you have a break, it's not the end of the world. You just join it back on like you did with your leader and try to get the same diameter along the way. I tend to spin at a certain diameter. I have to think really hard and concentrate really hard when I have to do a different diameter than what I'm comfortable doing. So this is like pretty thin, but not real thin. So it'll probably make a worsted yarn, like a worsted weight or a DK weight with a 2-ply. And when I'm doing thick yarn, I have to really concentrate on pulling more fiber. So the thin yarn, I'm pulling less fiber out. I'm drafting less fiber out. And when you're doing a thick one, it would probably be all of this roving. So that's really nice to have a good roving when you're doing a thick, bulky yarn. You don't have to draft as much. You just have to make sure that it's even and that the roving is even, and you just kind of let it go in. When I'm doing a bulkier yarn, I work a lot closer to the orifice because you don't need as much twist with a thicker yarn than you do with a thin yarn. With a thin yarn, you need a lot more twists. So I work further back from the orifice so it can get a nice twist on it before it goes onto the bobbin. So these are just the basics, very, very basics of spinning. I'm going to finish and fill the bobbin, and then I'll show you plying. I have finished spinning that one piece of roving. I'm not actually filling the bobbins, but normally these bobbins would be pretty full with singles. So a single is just one draft of fiber twisted. There's nothing plied here. So here's the Lazy Kate. This is called the Lazy Kate. It's got a tension on it. I love the one that Lendra makes. The two singles from here and here go through this eye, and you pull them together. This is, the tension's a little too much. Still, I put it on the ground next to me, and I pull up the two singles, and you're going to always have messy ends. And I just do a square knot. I just tie it to my leader. I don't do anything fancy here. I just tie it. Just makes it so much easier. So I have this a little bit. It's going to be a big bulk going through. But this is my ply head. So you can see the orifice is way bigger than the single one to spin singles. So it's for, I can do so much on this. I can, not only can I ply yarn, but I can make art yarn and lock spun yarn and core spun yarn because it's such a large orifice. Now, when you're plying, you're going to be plying, and the wheel's going to be turning the opposite way that you do singles. So with singles, we're spinning Z, and with plying, you're spinning S, or counterclockwise. So I'm going to start that and see where I'm at here. Make sure my tension's good, and that I like it, and that it's pulling my yarn on. Just gonna let that go, turn this up, my tension. And plying together. So really it's just the twisting together of the two singles to make a 2-ply yarn. Okay? And I'm going to continue to do this. I kind of just run my finger down, like the tension. I do the same amount of treadle kicks for each one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to finish plying this, and I'll show you the finished. I've used up that bobbin and semi-filled the ply bobbin. Normally, and this is just for demonstration, normally this would be filled all the way up. It would be filled. But I'm going to finish this off. I'm at the end, and what I do is just tie the end like that, simple, and let it go onto the bobbin. And then what I need to do is I need to wind it off from the bobbin. And so I turn my wheel sideways. I take the tension. Well, sometimes I can keep the tension on because it helps. And then pull the yarn out so it's not in this anymore. And so it's just spinning, the bobbin's spinning. And then I take this tool, it's called a niddy noddy. Usually comes like this. And you offset each side. So it looks like this. And I hold this, I'm gonna back this up a little bit because the niddy noddy is kind of a big movement. I hold the niddy noddy close and hold it onto the shaft and hold that tight, and you start, I always explain to people the way you wind your yarn onto a niddy noddy is outside, 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 outside. So you're always going to be going outside so you don't cross ever. So outside, up. And you can get real fast at this. It's a turn of the wrist too. I hope you can see it. It's kind of difficult. Let's put this back a little bit more. So it's winding on. And this is what's going to make your hank. Some people call it a skein, but in technical terms, it's a hank. You're going to be winding it on. If you need more instruction on niddy noddies, sure, I can make a separate video on just winding a niddy noddy. Actually going to take the tension off of that a little bit so it winds a little faster. You're going to wind. It's not going to be a big hank at all because it's only a demonstration and we're not filling it. We're not making a big skein or hank. So I'm going to do this until I get to the end. It's just enough to, ooh, it ended. That usually doesn't happen. It ended right where I have the piece ended here. It's kind of what you want to happen. But a lot of times that doesn't happen. I have some scissors here. I'm going to cut the end of my yarn and tie that off. So each end is tied off. And then I tie the ending end to the beginning end. That makes sense. Just a nice square knot. And then once you have your hank, this is how I sell them. And this is what I spin from. I just kind of take it off and put it around a chair and I wind off of that. But so a lot of people have ball winders, and you can set it up as so to wind it into a ball form. So you center pull. So I always try to leave some left over here. Now I can get closer. I always try to leave some left over. That way I can tie it. I'm going to need to tie it off on the other side too, but I try to do opposite sides. If I don't tie this hank while it's on the niddy noddy. Once I take it off, it can just kind of come out of its form. So I do like a figure eight. So I spread the fibers and put my yarn through and just tie it with the end. You can also, don't tie it too tight, just crank down on that. You don't want to tie it too tight. You have to leave room for it to bloom when you set the twist with hot water or warm water. So there's that. Now I know where that's tied and I know where the end is too. So that's, I just leave that there. And then actually, sorry for bending down. Then actually I can use a piece of this that's kind of I discarded, or you can just use a piece of yarn. Any yarn will do. And I try to find the opposite side to that, which would be about here. So I'm going to tie it again. So I'm going to spread the fibers, do a figure eight through. You can just tie it around, no problem. I like to do the figure eight because it separates it even more and it keeps it even more aligned and in the hank form. I have a lot left over here. It's no big deal because at least I know where my ties are. Some people will do them in different colors so they know where their tie offs are. And then from there, you're just going to take it off the niddy noddy. And if you did a good job, well, mine is, if it's balanced, it shouldn't do that. But I had a whole different single that I was not prepared to apply to this one, but that's okay. So this is what it looks like in the end. This is Olive's yarn, 2-ply. If you're happy with your hank, the one we just spun and took off the niddy noddy, you're going to set the twist. You need to set the twist, meaning whatever you twisted here, whatever singles you made and then plied together, it sort of needs to meld together. And we do that by washing in some hot water. So it almost felts a little bit. And then people will thwap it, which means they'll just hit it and bang it on after it's wet, they'll bang it around and rough it up a little bit. So they want it to felt a little bit in the yarn form. It kind of melds together. It's your preference, but it sets the twist when you run it in hot water afterwards. And the fiber sort of blooms out and sets. So I hope you enjoyed watching the entire process. I know it's long. This was a very brief 101 on processing wool. There's a lot of depth to it. So my advice is to just get into it and start trying new things. And that's how you learn best. So happy spinning, and please ask any questions that you have in the comments and I'll try to get to them. Take care.